Your current pace might be wrong, and here's why. Have you ever been out for a run, whether that's in training or in a racing situation, and you suddenly start getting major self-doubt, thinking, am I going too fast? Can I keep this pace up for the rest of this? Or am I going too slow? Perhaps you feel like you only have one pace for everything. No matter how far you run, your legs only know one way of doing it. Understanding what pace you should be going at is a lot to get your head around, mainly because it's just dependent on so many different factors. When I first started running and I was looking to get a faster 5K, my strategy was just to run 5K over and over and over again until I got faster. Wouldn't recommend. And I've spoken to loads of people at our run clubs whilst we've been out running that say that the speed that we were currently going at is the only speed that they've got in their locker. I'm going to take you through some really surprising numbers for the range of paces that you should be running at. I'm going to go through some specific examples, and then I'm going to show you what these paces look like for me, what they're for, the benefits of them, and what they should feel like when you're doing them. This has all been researched by the Running Channel team and coaches, so trust us, we know what we're talking about. Andy from the Running Channel recently did a video talking all about how actually to run faster you might want to start running slower, and this video was aimed at people that basically do all of their runs as hard as they can, me when I first started running. But actually we were chatting about this recently, and he made the point to me that when he was training for the Olympics there was a massive difference in the paces that he would be running in training, over a 4-minute difference in minutes per mile or a 2.5-minute difference in minutes per kilometre for the different types of runs that he was doing. But this isn't just for the pros. In fact, running at multiple different paces and knowing when and why to use each pace is the single biggest thing that has made a difference to my running. And actually now training for a 5K, there's a 3-minute in minutes per mile or 2.5-minute in minutes per kilometre difference between my fastest and slowest pace runs. So let's break it down. On the screen now you can see rough paces for me, which also shows the different types of paces I'm going to talk about, from long and easy runs up to speedier intervals. I've got the benefit of a coach, but there are lots of online calculators which can help you. Just start with a known race result, like your 5K time, and then they can help you work them out from there. I'm training for a sub 20-minute 5K, which I never thought would be possible, but you can see the ranges of paces here for someone who's run a 25-minute 5K, which actually is a very similar range of paces for a 4-hour marathoner, where they range from around 7 minutes per kilometre to around 4:30, and then for someone who's run a 30-minute 5K, where there they range from around 8 minutes per kilometre to 5 minutes. So to understand all of these different paces, if you can get to grips with what a true easy pace is for you, then everything else should follow suit, or at least that's my way of looking at things, so let's start from there. So an easy paced run or a steady paced run should feel super comfortable and sustainable. You should be able to hold a conversation during this run without feeling like you're pushing yourself too much. That's why some people often call this a conversation pace. Think about how your body's feeling. Does it feel comfortable? And also think about your breathing. Does it feel relaxed? You might also want to think about your easy runs in terms of rate of perceived effort, aka RPE. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the easiest, 10 being the hardest, your easy runs should sit around a 3 or 4, maybe a 5 at a push. Equally, if you want to think about this in terms of heart rate, we've got a great video on that, but you should be thinking about zone 2, maybe zone 3 at a push. So if you continue to do easy runs at this pace, what you might find is that you're able to go further, or you might find that you're going faster, but actually your breathing and RPE stays the same. Another cool thing that you can do is if you run the same route quite often, you can use apps like Strava or Garmin Connect and do matched run analysis to see how you're improving. I love doing this with the 10K route from my front door. I'll do it about once a month to track my progress. So the best way to see improvements as a runner is to start mixing up your paces and distances, but in a deliberate, structured way. So getting a good solid training plan is really going to help you make improvements fast. So using a coach, an app, or an online training plan is really going to help, and we've got a video all about that, so go check it out. So an easy pace is where you're going to be doing all of your long runs and your recovery runs too. The most important thing is to listen to your body and not feel any pressure to go faster. Remember as well that there are a lot of different factors that affect how different paces feel on a given day. Stuff like day-to-day changes in your body, your energy and stress levels, the terrain that you're running on, and even the weather. So don't be beholden to the individual actual numbers. Use a combination of heart rate and RPE as well to get the pace right. So that's easy running done. Next notch up is steady running. I like to think of this as gently squeezing a little bit more out of myself without making things too hard. So on a day where I'm not in the middle of training, I might feel quite fresh and it might feel quite easy, but at the moment I'm in the middle of 5K training, so everything feels quite hard. You want to think of this as maybe a 5 or a 6 out of 10 in terms of rate of perceived exertion, or a zone 3 if you're using heart rate training. I'll quite often have runs as part of my training that start easy and then finish steady. I love these type of runs purely because it gives me a chance to properly wake up in the first part and then push the pace a little bit faster as I get towards the end of the run. This is actually what's known as a progressive run, and I would love to know who has tried out this type of run. Let me know in the comments right now, or if you've got any other tips for any runners, pop them in and I'll have a read through. So we're then stepping up to a 6 or 7 out of 10 when it comes to tempo runs, which are longer, sustained, harder efforts where you could still talk, but you probably wouldn't want to hold a conversation. I like to think of this pace as the pace that I could sustain for up to around an hour. So when it comes to marathon and half marathon, your race pace might be slightly slower than this, but if you're working towards the 10K, you might find that your race pace is slightly quicker than this. Threshold running is different to tempo running, although they might look the same because they are quite similar. Threshold running, once you've really learnt this pace, you can start to dial it in and recognise it. It's the point at which your body is producing more lactate than it can get rid of. So how do you recognise that? Well, as lactate builds up, your legs will start to feel a bit heavier. It's where you're moving from aerobic into anaerobic energy production. So once you've recognised that, you can dial back the pace a little bit and find that sweet spot. So you're looking at a 7, maybe 8 out of 10 in terms of effort, or in the top of zone 4 for heart rate for around 30 or 40 minutes or so. You might also want to think about breaking this down into 10-minute chunks to make sure that you don't overcook it. I am very prone to doing this, but I've done a lot of threshold sessions recently and I have got a lot better, so stick at it. So this is where it gets tough. Hence why I'm sat down. In order to improve your VO2 max, you need to be training at much higher intensities. And this is where a lot of people get unstuck because it's hard. It's potentially much faster than you're used to, and you might not even think that you can go that fast. Bear in mind though that my easy pace runs are between 8 to 9.5 minute miling or 5 to 6 minutes per kilometre, whereas my interval paces are often 6:10 per mile or 3:15 per kilometre. That's a massive difference, and it is quite daunting. But you only have to maintain these paces for short bursts. Think 3, 4, or maybe 5 minutes at a time. It's going to be 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of effort and zone 5 for heart rate. It's also going to be much faster than your race pace, even for 5K, just. And keeping your recovery times small and even jogging them is a quick way to get fitter, faster. It'll also help make race pace feel easier. Now, you might not do this very often, but if you're doing something like hill sprints, provided it's not too steep, or if you're doing shorter efforts on a track like 400 metre or 200 metres, so 1 lap or half a lap on a track, then there is a place for working at near out, flat out running, so 9 or nearly 10 out of 10 in terms of effort. If you're working on shorter distances like 5K, this is important, but if you're doing longer distances, you can put this type of training into your runs by adding strides in. If you're not sure what they are, we've got a video all about it on the running channel, so go check it out. So I mentioned online pace calculators. You can also use these to help you work out your pace for another set distance, but it's important to understand that within the context of all of the different training paces that we've already talked about and start to get a feel for what your RPE or heart rate might be at all of these different paces. Learn how it feels and embrace the discomfort. It's going to feel very different running at marathon pace for several hours compared to 5K pace for 20 to 30 minutes. If you can start to understand your body in that way, then you can choose to push yourself up to, but not quite beyond that invisible red line, so that you can run the perfect race or training session. But remember though, the crux of pacing is that we're all different. It's important to find a pacing strategy that works for you, and it is something that changes with so many factors affecting how you might feel on a specific day. Now, I'm interested to know, how do you pace yourself? Do you use one method for all of your pacing, or do you use different methods for different objectives? Let me know down in the comments. And another thing, I've mentioned training plans quite a lot in this video, so if you're looking for another video to help you get set up and ready to improve your running, go and check this one out where Mo goes through exactly how to build the perfect training plan to set you up for a good run. Right, I'm off for an easy paced run.